Hey, this is just something that I do a lot of reflection sometimes when I have like free time after I've done breath work and just completely just let loose. You allow the free flow of electrons, all the currents, right? Just let them go with the flow, right? So they're all doing a dance for you. Hey, you're right there with it. Your consciousness is flowing right there with it. Everything down to the elemental and molecular level, right? And so what that means is that the flower of who you are, is in what we call full blossom, right? And what that means is you're not using any of your energy to protect yourself. It's unnecessary. Now you're feeling the maximum flow of higher bands, nirvana consciousness, right? And as if you don't have a care in the world. Time doesn't exist anymore. You're experiencing, obviously, an eternal state of balance, harmony, rhythm, which is peace. And that's a priceless state of mind, isn't it? That's because the water worlds, the hydrogen bonds are in balance. All the electrons, protons, and neutrons, man, are all in balance. All the energy, from the smallest to the largest, is all in balance. Doing a dance from whence it first began. That's full command. Now you're a power generator running on a cosmic level sun. Now you're free to go. That's called a free spirit. And that's a free flow of energy. That's a free flow of creation energy, because that's the law of least effort. So you can imagine how it was for me at 4 years of age. My dad throws me in a military academy because he thought that it was important for me to learn self-discipline when it comes to a hierarchy of command authority, see? In other words, you behave yourself. But in his mind, even though he put me in a military academy, which is a military hierarchy, right? Rank and horsepower. That's what my dad used to call it. Rank and horsepower. How much horsepower you got? Are you on the inverter side of the equation, Pop? Okay. Right. Listen, I left it alone. Right. But you can imagine how, having left that environment at 5 years of age and got a couple of chevrons pinned on me pretty young, able to follow a command authority, my buckles, everything. You won't find a loose thread on I was 5 years old and you won't find a loose thread on me. Which means when you have a photographic memory and somebody says something, you're in a command structure, which is obedience to the AI rule-based functions. You know how to obey them right to the letter. That's why they say right to the letter. Remember what Paul said in the Bible about don't be a man of letter? The importance of that. The difference between the carnal mind, the left, and the right. Right? Higher consciousness, lower consciousness. Instincts, animal instincts. Okay. I know. When you have access to all the energies, so you know all the most powerful energies that there are across the whole bag of tricks. So when you are operating in the primal sound field, you got a bigger bag of tricks. But our tricks is movie magic running on eternity. Okay, that's real movie magic. They don't do that. They run simulators, which is like it already happens. There's a big difference between experiencing eternal life creation as you're gone and then being in a simulator just to run a program interface. A simulator. No, we're just playing. We're just playing here. Just like in a voc ed class, right? Remember, want to learn how to build a house? Use all the tools. Be the architect. You can be the architect. You can be the plumber, you can be the carpenter, you can be the landscaper, uh, you can be the electrician, the finish carpenter, tile worker, right? Drywall, masons, right? Roofers, right? Hey, air conditioning, right? Put the air conditioning in there. And so once you've learned how to do all those jobs from start to finish, then you can design and build your own house however you want. Well, imagine that you've actually already manifested that into creation without having to sit at a drafting table and then think about it first. The picture's already there. No, but in this case, we're going to reverse engineer it. So we're going to take the puzzle apart and reverse engineer it and see if we can mimic something close to that. Get the picture? Okay. That's a copycat, but the numbers don't work. They're not in balance. See? That's why their tech don't work. They're like temporary band-aids. Okay. Right. That's what happens with fallen states of consciousness. And so you can imagine what it was like for me being in a very male-dominant situation, even though I have two older sisters. And my oldest sister was an angel. My mother was an angel. Actually, so was my father. Remember, I picked my family. Both my mother and my father were angels, and so was my oldest sister. And so that's why I used to wonder a lot of times, based on how much I could trust my father about things I should share, because I already know that I'm under a lid. Like, I don't release things to me. See how that works? I don't release things to myself to know what I'm supposed to know, when I'm supposed to know it, until I'm supposed to know when I'm supposed to know it. Because otherwise, once it becomes aware of what I am, then it can make a counter space move. Because it knows that it can't control you. Right? Which means it can't suck all my energy, our energy. It's like, you see how that sort of works? If it doesn't know where to get the energy from, and yet you're there, whoops. See, it's like a containment zone. Levels of containment. Like a virus that's loose, weaponized consciousness, black hole consciousness. Right? Sucking energy out of others. You know, letting the air out of the balloon. A snake that's eating itself at the tail till it eventually runs out of energy, however long that takes. Because as that consciousness formation becomes larger and larger in volume, then it needs a bigger and bigger appetite in order to keep itself running, right? See, then you obviously know where torque speed differential will trigger an event, cosmic level reset. It's like a built-in it just naturally happens. It naturally happens the way that it would naturally happen, because the natural state of consciousness, which is creation energy, which is what love is, it goes on forever, doesn't make mistakes. Because the balance is that perfect. If you catch my drift. So if the numbers don't work, then the keys don't fit into the lock very well, does it? Codes. And codes is the language of DNA communication, mathematical communication, symbols, character maps, energy maps, consciousness mapping. So it was, I say this because I've spent more of my time healing the feminine, higher octave side, obviously. When androgynous, perfectly balanced with a blast furnace, right? Which means, as a polarity integrator, which means it's not either or, I'm one. So I'm not in competition with myself. Okay? That's like a badass magnet, a hyperdrive magnet. It's like two magnets come together to become one. Instead of two poles, one pole. Wow, the center pole of that grid. Yep. That's exactly right. The center pole on that Cathar grid. That template. The biggest rod. That's the main pipeline. That's the primal pipeline. So I found myself, because I was surrounded by so many males that were, because of how all the programming worked. You know, present what a male is supposed to be in the mirror and you're a little boy. So when I grew up, it was all about war and military. It's all one. It's a war game theater. Okay? I mean, think about it. Really? You want to throw somebody money to act on your behalf? Really? You would do that? I used to say these things when I was a child. Listen, it's like you know how to be your own being, right? I mean, you can speak up for yourself, right? You want to sit around a council, and I'm an open receiver, so you're always going to be open to be able to freely communicate what it is you're feeling, whatever it is you're thinking, whatever's on your mind. You're free. Go right ahead. What do you want to speak? You can lay it all out. Whatever's on your mind, you're free to express it. Nobody's going to do anything to you. We love you. What happened? Because we're healers. Okay? We go through the same thing that everyone else goes through. And I can tell you that from a polarity integrator's point of view, that's an enormous amount of trauma. I was 4 years of age and I was experiencing all that. That was hell because it's so dense. I mean, really, really dense. From what you're accustomed, what it's like to be home, but you don't experience being away from home. My higher consciousness, our higher state of consciousness, is experiencing an eternal cosmic sun that goes on forever. So I knew him as my heart when I was 4 years of age. That's home base. I'm anchored to home, anchored through my heart and my oversoul to home base, the biggest pipeline, the biggest power plant, the cosmic sun. That's the one I call the blast furnace, when you light yourself on fire. You can't fool the one. You cannot fool the cosmic eternal sun. You have to be willing to release every electron that you've ever held captive. Give it all back. Which essentially means you're not holding anything captive anymore in memory. Zip. Because it takes energy, an electron, to hold something in memory. Let them all go. Holy shit, this is like reset. That's right. Everything I've ever held in memory. Anything that represents an electron that's been held in memory, let it all go. Burn it all off, which simply means you're going to experience eternity again, home. And that becomes a full circle of light. All the way up to the top, all the way down to the bottom. That's called a full recap reset. Lighting yourself on fire. You're going to burn through all your circuits and blow right out through the top of your head. You think that your head's going ballistic. I thought when I experienced that, I thought that my skull cap, you know, the bone on the top of your head, I thought it was just going to obliterate. Just obliterate. And just like a gazillion pieces of crystal. You know, little tiny transmitters. Whoa, little tiny piece of, whoa, little tiny living crystals. Little pieces of me. Right? Circuits. I knew that that was an important event. That was a big event. Because there were folks in the Earth Defense Alliance, if you will, like Patty Broussard, that said, well, this is what's going to happen. But after, she didn't know what happened with me on December 15th and why I was on the Big Island in January 5th. And then the Battle of the South Pole was about 9 months later. And it was right after that, while I was on the Big Island, she said we were going to have a pole shift. And we didn't, did we? Because her and myself and Karen McDonald and Dean, who was another AB positive bloodline, were having, a Zoom conversation, or I think it was Zoom. Doesn't matter. We had a conference call together. And so we were going to go to the Ute Reservation, right? And because of some work she had done to rescue some children, Patty did, that sort of, if you will, curried favor with the elders of the Ute Indian Reservation to employ their assistants to build some underground structures that Patty had designed in order to withstand 600-mile-an-hour winds, 600-foot tidal waves hitting West Coast. So, in other words, the beach would go back to being Salt Lake, stuff like that. So I looked at her design, and it was perfect. I know something about engineering. I know something about environmental engineering and what is required to build a structure that can sustain over what's called time duration, the amount of time that would be required in order to be able for the other environment to be suitable enough, without help, if you will, to go above ground again, right? Nevertheless, when I became aware of that, I put some of my energy towards doing that, but I wasn't in really a hurry to do that. But as events unfolded over the future during that time, I ended up leaving the Big Island, went to Reno, and then I went to Oregon, where a lady who was there, who was in that conversation, she hot-footed it over to the Salt Lake City area. And then all of a sudden, it just went south. It just didn't pan out. Events weren't occurring either in Patty's life, that other person's life, Dean's life, or my life. It so indicated that our energies connected to each other between operating systems were going to be networked in order to carry out that function. And that function didn't happen. Because as certain events are happening, there are other things that are also happening that may change future results that are believed that may occur based on the information and what they become aware of at the time they become aware of it. Remember, now we're back to an AI battlefield environment about what we know, when we know, and when events are going to occur and when they're not going to occur. You're not going to know. It's not going to know. Okay. You see how the security works on that? Remember, you got to throw super soldiers into this mix. Okay? I'm with the founders. Okay. So it's you can understand how messages are sent, right? Remember I mentioned a couple, if you go look at some of my old videos, you're basically listening to a narrative of what I'm experiencing at the time that I'm experiencing it. If you go back to Rose Suite, when I was first prompted put up, and you'll see one of the significant things that I remember when I was in Reno, Nevada, which was in 2020, summer 2020. I did a video in the morning when I got there because I was staying in a homeless shelter, and I would go to Sparks in the morning because they have like a lake out there in a nice little park with a lot of Canadian geese that hang out there. That's why I love to go there, hang out with the Canadian geese, and in a water area. And so I used to go there early in the morning and grab Reno Transit and then get out there just before the sunrise, about a half hour before sunrise while it's still dark out, and go out there and just be by myself when sun comes up, right? And just be in a meditative state, you know. And then as the sun came up, I got the message through my heart. It's what it is you're experiencing. What I experienced was an expansion, a significant expansion of more living God consciousness light, if you will. Okay, real living light in spirit coming through my heart, and I was experiencing it on a galactic level. So I acknowledged the galactic transmission, okay, from the galactic sun. That the sun, because I run on a cosmic sun, that means that I'm experiencing the sun of the galaxy, increasing the amount of light that is experiencing through this galaxy. The whole galaxy had expanded because I experienced it in my heart. So I got the message because I'm experiencing what this galaxy is experiencing. Okay. That was a significant event. That's when I knew. So I thought, okay, we got this. That basically means we got the galaxy back. That's right. The Arcturians and the Syrians do have a coalition. Absolutely. And I keep it simple. Okay. I just try and keep this simple. I'm a love energy being. I'm always in service. I'm just that little 4-year-old kid that knows that I have an eternal love connection to the source from which it all began. Okay, so that means my heart is with the founders because I know how much love it is to experience that. I know how to experience that much love. I experience that much love. I have founders' love in my heart and soul. I know how deep it feels to love that much. Okay. You have no idea unless you have felt it through my own heart. And so that's why all this is happening. That's why this is a grand celebration. Love will always win. It has to. Otherwise, you lose your universe. The universe your mind lives in. I know that for an absolute certainty. That's what it means to go insane. That's what an inverted state of consciousness is. That's a psychopath. It has no love for itself. It has no love for others. It's in war game mode against its own mirror. That's a self-suicide program. That's a 55 harmonic. That's a black hole. How are you going to get somebody out of a black hole? They got to do it themselves, don't they? That's what I meant about covering debts. We cover debts. Trying to retrieve all the souls. That's what a polarity integrator does. Pulls all one fractals in. Pull all those fragments back in. Experience the one from whence it began. There's only one. There's only one true God. The source from which it all began. That's an eternal sun. So you know when you're experiencing eternal unconditional love through your own heart, you know who the creator is. So you're co-creators, co-manifestors, running on the same energy. So you're a gift. You're a gift horse. Remember the old saying, don't look a gift horse in the mouth? Remember that? So yeah, it's true that when I was a child growing up, it's easily to be taken advantage of. Because one, we don't fear anybody, okay? As a general rule, I trusted everybody because I realized if I am what love is, and I'm telling you the truth, then you don't have any reason to distrust me. Because I'm not going to tell you no lies, because I am what love is, and love is the absence of lies. But because you're operating in a very tight, secure environment, right, about what you know and what you don't know, and maybe I should not tell the truth in this situation, and now we're into the omission, the sin of omission, because I could end up being taken out or be shooting myself in the foot, because I got to be here for the long haul. So sacrifices, they sacrifice what they sacrifice for the reasons they sacrifice as inverters. We sacrifice our energy on behalf of the whole. Save the whole enchilada, which are all the souls. Big difference. And the big difference is that we can reboot our energy, which essentially means is that healing ourselves, because you're experiencing all their trauma. So a polarity integrator has to be willing to experience an enormous amount of trauma. On a level at times, it's just like, whoa. That's why I mentioned one time when I went through the Rockwell International situation where I went to the president of the company for poisoning the groundwater of Southern California, right? So now I get events unfolded to where maximum stress, okay? And then I end up in a psychiatric hospital as a way in which union reps are telling me I might be able to get my job back. I got sold out for somebody else. So you realize how this is all corporate military operations being done. So you already know, if you watch my other videos, why I worked in those places, where I did it, Naval Weapons SEAL Beach. And then, the Information Systems Command at Rockwell, Satellite Systems Command in SEAL Beach, and the Space Transportation Command in Downey, right? And then the lady that I've said 7 years was Oliver's going to be, right? And she gave birth to somebody, my son, okay? Believing that if she did that, I wouldn't want to be with our mother. In other words, she didn't want me spending my life in nature with Mother Earth, the great living oversoul spirit of Mother Earth. See? Because she was programmed to believe in the scarcity of consciousness, which is the scarcity of energy, in order to be held captive by money, translated as energy in numbers. So you know that's not going to last. With a nature boy and a girl is one blast furnace, right? So that's what led to all this stuff. And then it was time to get it all back, recover your energy. So there was a point in time there when I was interviewed by somebody from the state of California about what was it, a workman's comp case about what was it? I forget. California had something set up that allowed you, if you were going to go into a different job or something like that, that you could get money for going to school and stuff like that. But they had to see whether or not you had a disability or something. In other words, if what they did to me was considered an act of war against the soul, and now that soul has experienced an enormous amount of trauma, the way that they see that is that, okay, we're willing to retrain you to go back to work with one of our corporations as a result of getting burned out by the way we treat you. Because that's exactly how I experienced it. Because that's what he told me. The guy that interviewed me, to see how I ended up in his office as a result of what happened at Rockwell. Okay? And so they have a code for that. They have a code. They have a math code for that. And the math code for that is called burnout. burning out a positive bulb. You know, positive magnetic polarity, negative magnetic polarity, right? So these are all the counter space moves when you're in a battlefield environment. Of all the intersections that are made in order to get your energy. That's a binary chessboard game. It's a navigation issue. It's a gyrodome navigational issue. Navigating across a game board, a war game theater. So these are AI war games. Okay, between races that it's going on. That's why it became such a massive war. That's why it became such a massive black hole. That's an energy war. No matter how you want to slice it. Energy is consciousness. It's an energy war, which is a DNA war, which is an antenna war, which is a math war, which are codes, which is encryption and decryption. Now we're back to math. The numbers don't lie, right? So, so what I noticed over a period of time was, and naturally from a healing perspective, the way that it's measured because of the way that I experience it, is how much of their energy as a male is not being used to allow a flower to blossom within them, which simply means their energies are balanced. You know, in other words, now we're back to the innocence. Aisha Dawn mentioned one time something I may have followed up on when she talked about what it means to be so innocent that you're unaware of not experiencing being innocent. In other words, we describe what it means to be innocent because of how we experience it. In other words, imagine yourself as a flower and you're out in the middle of a forest somewhere, experiencing yourself being a flower in like a beautiful garden with other plants and trees, butterflies, hummingbirds, trees, the leaves, the wind, the elements, the clouds, right? Everything is calm and peaceful, a nice breeze in the middle of summertime, and you're experiencing being a flower and being loved because the energy that you're experiencing through your roots and all your chakras going up through your stems to your flowers in full bloom, because you're experiencing eternal state of peace and eternal state of balance and rhythm with all the waves, and you're experiencing eternity. The flower itself is experiencing eternal energy. Experience being loved. So it's not experiencing anything less than what love is, because its purity is the innocence of its purity. That's a pure heart, which is pure light, which is pure unconditional love that's on fire. That's what we are. We're on fire to give it away. So you know, from a polarities point of view, when it comes to the healing side of all this, we have to be able to heal ourselves first, or we're not going to be any good to healing anybody else. And so when it comes to pulling all the fragments in, it simply means is you have to know how to do that. Okay? Setting yourself on fire is a good way to do that. Right? That's like memory wipe stuff. And actually she did that. Mama did that. So yeah. So anyway, have a beautiful afternoon. Be good to yourselves.